Hello and welcome to this session for Tech Day, Effective Online Discussions. My name is Michelle and I'll be presenting this topic to you today. I started at URI in March, so I'm new here. I've been teaching online since 2005 and I've been designing online learning since 2005, so 15 years across many different learning management systems. I've been managing e-learning technology support since 2012, and I've worked in 3 countries across 4 previous institutions, so it's allowed me to see a variety of ways that people have implemented and managed discussions in various cultural contexts. And I have a doctorate in instructional technology and distance education. So this is what I would call an Ignite session, meaning it's going to be really quick and fast. Quick ideas, a lot of real case study discussions, but fast ideas. And really the point is to give you a toolbox of possibilities and ideas and tools and technologies that you could use to have really high quality online discussions with your students that advance their learning and engage them and motivate them. So this will be a toolbox that you can then pick from. And then I welcome anyone reaching out, and I'll put information at the end where you can set up a one-on-one consultation with me. And I really like to sit down with people and talk to them personally. I know that each of your classrooms is unique, your students are unique, and your teaching style is unique, and you each are teaching different topics. And so it's particularly helpful here. I'll give you a lot of general ideas, but then it's really helpful for me to sit down with you, look at your syllabus, look at your learning goals, look at what you want to do and what your activities are, and then I can make more specific suggestions of technology and tool resources that will support your pedagogical approaches. So I think particularly in online discussions, we often want to look at 21st century skills that we want our students to have as a consequence of the learning. Computing skills, critical thinking skills, they're challenging skills, being able to think about things, creativity skills, cross-cultural skills, communication skills, and collaboration skills. And all of this can kind of be secondary skills they gain on top of the competencies that they're learning in your class. We also want to think about the 4 M's of adult learning. We want that learning, we want our discussions to be magnetic, meaning it really pulls them in and it engages them and it gets them hooked. That it's meaningful to those students, that the online discussions that they're going to do, or even discussions in the classroom, are really meaningful to them personally and their learning goals and objectives. We want it to be memorable. It wants to be things that they're going to remember, and that's really going to seat that learning in their mind so that they walk away from it. I've often heard they say that maxim that you'll use 20% of what you learned for 80% of what you do in life. And if that's true, are you giving your students that 20%? What's that special 20% you want them to walk away from? You want those things to be memorable so that they remember them later. And you want it to be mobilizing, meaning motivating. I used to teach environmental science, and in environmental science we talked a lot about what we called responsible environmental behavior. And that means it's one thing to teach them about the environment and needs with the environment, but are they actually doing anything about it? If they aren't doing anything, if there is no action coming out of it, then it's as if they had never learned the content at all. So you want it to be mobilizing learning that they're really going to do something with after. So some best practices in online discussions. You want them to be personalized. You want them to be interactive. Avoid fluff. Don't have discussions for the sake of discussions. Like, they're busy. People are busy in online classes. They're busy adults. They're working. They have family life. So, really stuff that makes sense to the class and that they really need to advance their learning. Engaging things that will really motivate them and inspire them and intrigue them. Applied learning. Are they applying what they're learning in your class in a really applied, hands-on way? Usability. Things that will be really useful to them as they move forward. Competency-based, and of course group-based learning is something that's really great for online discussions. You get a lot of group-based learning. And sustainability, you want stuff that's really going to be, like I said, it's that 20% that they're going to use for 80% of their life later. So here I want to talk about Richard Mayer. He does the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. He works out of Harvard University. You can look him up online and find his lecture videos and his research papers. It's really important learning theory, particularly in regards to how you design online discussions or video lectures or multimedia resources that you give students in online learning. He says that people learn more deeply from words and pictures than they do from words alone. And, design should align with how the brain learns, meaning learning is active, and it's also auditory and visual, but they have limited capacity. So you want to provide those multiple forms of learning, but without overloading students so they get cognitive overload. I think this is really important in online discussions. So just a basic text-based discussion isn't really going to engage or intrigue students as much. Where they are also doing visuals along with the words in those discussions, I think it would be a far more interesting discussion for the students. They're more engaged and they're probably going to remember it more better. So, you can have students use tools to do infographics or to make videos, and they do video discussions instead, or visual presentations for their discussion posts in place of your traditional text-based host, and using all those multimedia methods and approaches, allowing them multiple ways to show you their learning that can be visual as well as text-based would actually, they'll learn that far better, and it's going to stick with them and be like we talked about the 4 M's. It's going to be more motivating, it's going to be more mobilizing, it's going to be more memorable, it's going to be all those M's. And just I want us to always remember that in online learning, really our objective is to teach them how to take responsibility of their own lifelong learning, and this is far more true on online learning than I think face-to-face, although, I know we want it across the board. But in online learning, the professor just isn't there every day to push them along, to remind them that things are due. They have to become more independent. They have to become more organized. They have to plan ahead more in online learning. They have to remind themselves and think about what's coming up themselves and take some charge of their learning in online learning. And so through the discussions, you can really provide them opportunities to learn those kinds of skills. So when we're going to plan discussions for an online class, sort of what are the steps we would go through? Well, the first one is to analyze what your learning goals and objectives are. Can't choose tools or technology until you know what you want to do. And so look at that. Look at what are your objectives. In short, what is it that you want students to be able to do or apply as a consequence of that particular exercise or assignment or task? So some ideas. As I said, I've been teaching online as a faculty member since 2005. Initially, my bachelor's and master's degree are in ecology and botany, and then biology, ecosystems. So I taught environmental science, I taught botany, I taught biology, I taught natural sciences. So you're going to see that a lot of my examples are going to be related to the environment, and probably related to it in the Pacific Northwest, because that's where I did those initial studies. And then later I shifted into distance education and technology support. So, that's how my examples will often be based in that. But anyway, so some ideas. If I want my students in the part of an ecology course to be able to recognize white rot fungal infections in forest ecology ecosystems, okay, what do I want them to do? I want to be able to actually figure that out. I want to be able to recognize it. I want to be able to identify it when they're walking around the woods. So what would I do? I would probably have them go out in the woods and take a video of themselves describing some white rot that they found, showing proof that they know what it is, showing proof that they can talk about it, showing it within the environment that they're in, and then I would have them post that video as their discussion forum, rather than just writing a text about what is white rot fungal. That's really boring, it's not interesting, it's not engaging, it's not personalized, it's none of those best practices we talked about. And that's easy to cheat, right? We've got to talk about plagiarism in discussions. You say just talk about white rot fungal infections, they can cheat. They can go out and just copy that off the web and put it in the post. But if you make it personalized, where they're going out and videoing themselves talking about it at a log that they found, they've actually applied the learning. They've shown understanding of the competency and the skills. They can't cheat it. They're on a video discussing it, so they actually have to know about it. In another class, when I was working as an instructional designer, I had someone come to me and they said that their students were cheating in their class. This was an environmental science class. And they just couldn't get them to stop cheating in the discussions. So I went in and looked, and the discussion questions were, go to the EPA website and copy 3 toxic chemicals and talk about them here. So what did they do? They went to the EPA website and they copied about 3 and they put it in their post. Literally, the directions told them to plagiarize. And there was nothing interesting. It wasn't personalized. It wasn't application of knowledge. It was just regurgitation of something they'd read somewhere. So try to make the discussions more advanced. You know, we talk about Bloom's understandings and taxonomy of learning. Make it advanced knowledge. Make them applying what they're learning. So I worked with that professor and we said, okay, instead let's have them go around their house and take photos of toxic chemicals in their house, say 2 or 3. You know, she could decide. And they take a photo of themselves with the bottle, whatever the chemical was, bleach or, you know, you name it, and of the chemical information on it. And then they would have to go to the EPA website and research that chemical that's in their house and talk about what they have in their house and what that means, and really then have a greater discussion about the kinds of chemicals we have in our homes. But this was personalized. It was applicable to their lives. It was applying the knowledge they have to something in their lives. It was really hard to cheat. You can't really cheat photos of yourself with chemicals and talking about what's in your house. So it reduced plagiarism and cheating. So, you know, these are all the ways that you can really look at what you want to do, but then think about unique ways to have the students still apply that knowledge in an advanced learning method in order to have the really advanced learning online discussions with them. For example, another of my ideas here, I wanted my students to identify the 3 most common plant families in the Pacific Northwest. I might have them do a video or an infographic or a presentation talking about that plant family, talking about the morphological features that are used in the taxonomy of that plant family. So I would have them point those things out, maybe in a video. They might do a digital poster. I might have them do a PowerPoint presentation, something a little more interesting than just text-based. It's harder to cheat, and it's more engaging because, as we just talked about, that cognitive theory of multimedia learning, they're using visuals and text together, which is going to be more memorable and more motivating. So step 2, in step 1, I've analyzed my goals. I know what I want my students to learn, what I want them to be able to do. So now I got to look at what was the learning or curricular approach that I used in the classroom. In short, you know, how can we give them the same learning experience online, and how can they still show the same proof of skill competency online? So here I was doing this particular thing in the classroom, and now I need to do something online, and what can I do? And we talk a lot in online learning and technology, educational technology, about what's called equivalency theory. And equivalency theory is the theory that online learning experiences should be equivalent to face-to-face. Now, we're not saying equal. They're not equal because they're 2 completely different delivery formats. They're not going to be equal. They're different. But they should be the same quality. They should be equivalent quality, equivalent learning experiences, and equivalent opportunities to learn. We want our students walking away from online classes feeling like they had an equivalent learning experience to their face-to-face classes. So how can we do that? How can we provide them an equivalent learning experience? And that's through the use of various tools and technologies to meet those curricular approaches that you were using in the classroom before. So step 2, step 1 again, what are my goals? Step 2, what were the approaches I was using? And so some ideas on that. You could have, if they shared a research paper in the classroom, you could have them do a video of them talking about a research paper they read in the online discussion forum. You could have them debate the merits of some particular philosophical question, or a question that experts in the field debate in the discussion forum. You could still have them go on a field trip, have them go to a nature reserve or a museum or wherever and video themselves in front of the painting they're describing, or for architecture in front of a building. Have them out in the forest, talking about the ecosystem that they're studying. Have them do videos and post those instead of just, why have them submit a post that's just like, here's what a desert biome is like. Boring. Have them go out to a desert biome and do a video of themselves talking about the environment, showing the animals and the plants that are part of that biome. This is so much more interesting and engaging way to do a discussion. So discussions don't have to be text-based. They can be visual, they can be presentation, they can be video. There's all these other ways you can do online discussions that are far more engaging and interesting for students. You can have them do lab practice. You can have them present on topics. You can have them lead discussion topics, sort of leadership challenges. You can have collaborative discussions where, like I said, they debate questions in the field. Anything that's highly debated in the field, have the students debate it. That's going to be their career. Let them start getting into the depth of what experts in the field are all debating or even disagreeing on. I used to go in my plant taxonomy and botany, I used to give them a mystery plant. It was a plant that for some reason was rather hard to identify. I would do a video of it. I would show all the taxonomical and morphological features, and then they would have to identify it. And they had fun in the discussion forums debating the identity of that plant and what, the taxonomical approaches they used and the plant, what they thought the plant family was. So you could do case studies, have them discuss a case study. There's all these ways that you can make discussions so much more advanced and interesting than just regurgitating information. So step 3 now, we've looked at our goals in step 1, what we want them to learn or do. We've looked at the approaches we used in the classroom, and we start thinking about how can we give an equivalent approach or learning experience in online. And so now we're going to look at the tools. How are we going to get that same approach, and what tools will work best for my needs to meet that approach? So what will, basically, in short, what tools will allow students to still gain mastery of this objective? Which tools will meet the need of this learning requirement without detracting from it? And that's a really important discussion to have. Is I have seen some faculty go wild, wild west in their online classes. And they're implementing all these crazy tools. Well, remember, every tool a student has to learn, that's a cognitive load for them. They're learning that tool and they're learning this other tool. So I do recommend that departments talk to each other and that across departments they're using the same tools. If you want your students to do digital posters, get the whole department using the same digital poster tool so that students across doing the core work in that department will only have to learn one type of digital poster or one type of screencasting tool or one type of video editing. So it makes it a little bit easier on students. And remember, you want to make smart choices about the tools you make. They should support your learning, whether it's a blackboard or an overhead projector or a smart board or a chalkboard, old school chalkboard, or it's a video or it's online, Web 2.0 tools. Whatever tool you're using, it should support the learning. Learning should come first, and tools should be in the background supporting it to give them an equivalent learning experience in a different delivery format. So I'm going to go through some ideas now. Again, this is just a toolbox of ideas to get your brain working on all the things that you could do to make really unique and interesting advanced types of discussions in your classes. So in this particular case, we're going to talk about role plays. I've run them in many of my online classes. They've been received incredibly well by students because it allows them an opportunity to be in the role of another person that they may need to be in at some point in the future. In my online classes, when I taught environmental science, I had an environmental disaster role play. So, they all lived in Springfield and they took on various roles within the Simpsons community. There was Burns who ran the chemical factory, and there was a person in charge of the golf course, and there was the business owner, and there was the concerned mom with the child who was sick from the toxic chemicals in the environment. So they all took on different roles. And the thing about a role play, so if you really want students to get the most educational value out of it, you want to put them in roles that are actually contrary to how they think in the real world. So I actually interviewed students prior, and I got an idea of whether they were left-wing, right-wing, conservative, liberal, pro-environment, anti-environment, etc. And I would put them in opposite roles. If they were a liberal, pro-environmental person, I made them the conservative business owner. If they were in the real world, anti-environment, more conservative, I put them in the liberal, pro-environment role. I purposely, because the whole curricular point of a role play is to make them see new perspectives and try to gain an understanding of other people's point of view. And that was my goal. My goal was they will walk away from this knowing that there's lots of perspectives, there's lots of opinions, and they're hard to collaborate and get consensus on, and that's what I want them to walk away with. So I put them in very different roles from their real world views. And then I was the mayor, and I ran the role play as the mayor, so I would introduce them to the problem was that a bunch of moms had sick children, and they believed it was from the chemicals on the golf course, and they thought the golf course would be shut down, but of course the business owners were concerned because there was the economic value. From all the people who came to go to the golf course would also spend money at the local restaurants and stores. And I gave them all a little synopsis prior to the role play. I said, this is the role you're going to play. This is where you're coming from. These are your concerns. And then I let them run with that and make those roles their own after that. And everyone had to debate the issue in the discussion forum. Now, this was asynchronous. I've also seen them done synchronous through a webinar tool. So that's really up to you how you manage that. I did it asynchronously in a discussion forum. And they debated it, and then I threw in a wrench. About 5 days in, where they were debating, you know, these horrible, evil chemicals on the golf course, I then threw in a wrench where, you know, this really respected older lady in the community that everyone called Grandma, she had died from this bad strain of malaria, and now they were going to have to come in and spray for mosquitoes. And so this threw this whole wrench because, you know, they're like, well, yeah, people are dying, so we have to use chemicals. But over here, we're telling them to stop use chemicals. So anyway, I got such great feedback at the end of it. The students really appreciated having kind of seen the complexity of trying to solve environmental issues. And that was what I wanted them to have out of it. I have seen other courses do conferences. So in one case, it was a Middle Eastern cultural studies course, and they did a Middle East peace conference. And different students were given the role of ambassadors from different countries in the Middle East, and then they discussed, I think if I remember right, it was 3 particular key issues at the time, so, you know, violence, water rights, things like this. So, and then they had to discuss those from the perspective of their own countries, and the students really had to get in and research their countries and research how they felt on some of these issues to really understand current events and be able to do that. In a class that I took when I was doing my doctoral studies, the professor had us take on roles. We had to each be a famous educational psychologist. So someone was Sigmund Freud, for example. And so all these famous educational psychologists through history, we all each had to take one. And then we had to debate stuff, but from the point of view of that psychologist. So she would give us very specific questions to discuss. And we'd have these really hard debates with each other about what we thought, because we had to really do it from the point of view of this person. What would I have thought about this, and how would I have debated it? And it made us all learn what these psychologists stood for and the basis of their research in such a more interesting way. At a university I worked at, the nursing department, who ran a full online ASN to BSN program, 100% online, they did a case study role plays in nursing triage. So really giving people these case studies that was some critical situation, and the students had to then decide how they were going to approach it, and it gave them some sort of real life experience playing those roles. So those are just a few ideas of role plays I've seen done in both asynchronous and synchronous online learning. So the tools are that it can be either delivery format. A lot of times you'll use document tools like Google or Office 365 documents, because you're going to be giving people their roles. You're going to be having them research it. You may have them write a paper or do research on their role or country or whatever their topic is going to be prior to help them prep for doing the role play and feeling confident about running their role. You'll certainly need a discussion forum or a webinar tool if you do it synchronously, and so all those tools come into effect there. Benefits: it's engaging, it's applied, and it's interactive and even collaborative between students. So idea 2, leadership skills. You can do advanced types of online discussions that advance students' leadership skills. So they lead a discussion topic. They do small group case studies where they work together in small groups. You can set up small group discussion forums in your class and put students into smaller groups. And then they would discuss together some specific case study or problem in the field, like I said, solve a mystery or debate something that's, really interesting within the field that maybe experts were arguing about or unsure about. That can be really intriguing and engaging to students. And then you can have them also post their discussions as videos where they present a topic and then they post it to the other students, and the other students can reply and discuss what was presented. So these are all ways the students take some leadership in the discussions and they become a part of actually managing those discussions or leading them. And so it's kind of twofold. Now tools, again, it can be asynchronous or synchronous. I've seen VoiceThread used very successfully in this way. That's where students reply to each other with video. You can use video, you can use a regular discussion forum, you can do small groups. All these tools work really well for this. Again, some benefits: it's applied, it's interactive, it's independent. Idea 3, virtual field trips. So a lot of classes do field trips, or they have guest speakers, or they go see someone speak, or they go see something. You can still do this in online learning. You do it as a special type of weekly discussion or event. They can still visit a park, have them visit a local park, and they video themselves at the park, and they talk about the park, and maybe they video themselves showing things that they learned, and they post that in the discussion forum, and then everyone can look at what everyone else did. Have them still visit a museum and talk about art and maybe analyze a piece of artwork. Or they do it as a video and they share it, and then they can look at each other's analysis of different art pieces. Have them still research a place or topic and bring that back in to share or to lead a discussion or to share with each other to discuss. You can do that as video. They can do it as a PowerPoint or presentations. It doesn't have to be text-based. It can be, you can have great multimedia discussions in the class, which are far more engaging for students. Guest speakers, you can certainly still do that. You can go out and interview somebody, or they can even come in and speak synchronously to your class. So these are all ways that you can still get those in as really cool discussion options in your classrooms. So tools, obviously video is very much used. You can do asynchronous or synchronous just like all the other ones. Discussion forums, small group discussions, they could make websites and then people could go post on each other's websites. I've seen that done. There's so many tools that you could use to make all of that happen. And again, this is benefits. It's creative, it's collaborative, it's engaging, and it's applied. So idea 4, jigsaw. So that's when various people work together to bring in different parts of a project. And this can be done across domains. It could be a design, it could be a plan, it could be a project of some type, it could be research. They might work on a paper, they might work on a poster, they might actually work on a drawing or some sort of schematic or flow chart or some sort of process or method even, right? There's so many things that this could be used for, and you get people into small groups and they each take a part of that, either research or project or plan or design or whatever it is that you're going to have them do, and they work on that together, and then they can discuss that together. So this is a really interactive group-based learning and collaboration where they're applying what they're learning through discussions with each other. This is a far more interesting type of discussion in a class than just your typical text-based forum, right? Tools, Google Apps for collaboration. They're probably going to use that. They can also use Office 365. Apps has all the same things as Google for collaborating between people. You can do small groups and small group forums for them to be able to talk to each other and discuss what they're doing. That also allows you as the faculty member to keep track of what they're doing and to see what they're doing if that's in your Brightspace class. They can do videos and presentation tools. They could make infographics. They could make drawings. They could make schematics. They could do a digital poster using a tool like Glogster. They can do really cool infographics with a tool like Pictochart. They can make a video presentation. They can do multimedia presentations in a PowerPoint. So there's so many ways that they could take those discussions and that jigsaw work that they've done and put it all together and combine it all into some sort of presentation they can then give to the class. And then you can have all class discussions about what each group has done. So again, another really exciting way to have some advanced discussion types in an online class. Some of the benefits, it's collaborative, it's interactive, it really produces leadership in students and allows them to learn some planning and project management and working well with others, which we all have to do in the real world. Really quickly, I wanted to share some resources, so I'm going to pause this recording a moment and just get those ready, and then I'll be right back. So I wanted to share this resource with everybody. It's called the Virtual Learning Design and Delivery Online eBook. It's an open educational resource. It's freely available to everybody. This was a project between myself and professors at a variety of universities in the U.S. who all contributed content and information to it, many experts in the field. It's a freely available training resource for people who are just starting to teach online, and it's really, each chapter was meant to be short and sweet, just the basics someone needs to know to get up and running. So there's a lot of chapters in here that really relate to design, hybrid and flipped learning, professional online lectures, how to do synchronous lectures. But the chapter that relates to what we're talking about right now is chapter 6 here. It's the effective online discussions. So I really want to recommend, you can see the link up above in the browser. go there and check out this. So it has it has some great videos. Talks about benefits. It talks about instructor presence, which is still incredibly important in online discussions. I've heard this myth many times from people that online learning is going to replace professors. It's not true. Trust me, I've been teaching online since 2005, and those students, they want you to be available and they want you to be present, and they get upset if you're not, and that's what they're paying tuition for. They can go read the book anytime they want. What they're paying tuition for is to get access to you, the expert, with all the wisdom of the field. So instructor presence is still incredibly important in whatever type of online discussions you design and build. So it talks about that. Some really great tactics for bringing them in and getting them excited, and also summarizing. Summarizing is really key. So at the end of each week, I always summarize that week's discussions, whatever we did. I do a sort of summary of what I saw, misconceptions I saw, really good points people brought up. I summarize it for them, and I post that to my virtual office. So another discussion forum type you should put in an online course is your virtual office, and that's where you post information about the class, due dates, things you want them to keep up on, and I put the summaries of weekly discussions in there for students to see. Avoiding burnout, it's real, and managing online discussions. So you used to manage a 1-hour class with 120 people. So you had a discussion for 1 hour, and you got everybody in at the same time. Now you're teaching online, and you're going to have 120 students all making posts. And you can't reply to 120 students. There's no way to manage that in that way. So again, you can do similar tactics. First of all, save what you've written up and reuse it. Reply to multiple students at once. Research does show that if professors reply to too many people too soon in the week, it actually squashes student interaction. So, because they're waiting for you to reply, they're waiting to see what you say, and they aren't just replying to each other. So let them get started. Let them start talking to each other before you come in and start replying. Let 2 or 3 students start having a threaded discussion, and let it go a few levels down, and then you reply to all 3 of those students at the same time with some, advancing the discussion or more food for thought or interesting things, or asking them about something, and get them to then discuss it even deeper that way. That's how you can get deeper threads. So, and it means instead of replying to 3 posts, you're replying to all 3 students at the same time. Set your work hours and stick to them. Don't go outside of it, or it will take over your life. And remember, quality versus quantity is better. So then we can move on. Now, this section I really like because it's strategies for quality. How do you manage a whole lot of discussions without losing your mind and your sanity, which can happen in online learning? So, for example, make the value clear. Make the post directions very clear. There's a word limit. Put it. If they need to post at least 500 words, do it. If they need to have a video that's at least 2 minutes long, do it. If in their presentation, they need to talk about XYZ, have grading rubrics to make it really clear what's expected. Grading rubrics are really important for online discussions, and my suggestion is you go to Google and you put grading rubric for online discussion, and in the Google search, and a billion examples will come up to show you, and then you can use those examples to create your own rubric for your class to make it very clear what they're being graded on, how they're being graded on. Make it worth something. If it's not worth a decent amount of the grade, they're not going to take the discussion serious. So make it worth 10, 15, even 20% of their grade. Clearly state participation requirements. So, tell them that, replying to someone and saying, I agree, or nice post is a very pleasant thing to say, and they're welcome to do that, but it doesn't count for the minimum participation each week. For example, if they're supposed to do at least 2 or 3 replies that are substantive and high quality, tell them that doesn't apply to that. That's not part of their participation grade. So you're promoting really interactive feedback. Create a permanent discussion schedule. Have, for example, the initial discussion post or project or whatever they're posting due every week on the same day at the same time, like every Tuesday or every Wednesday, and then they know. I've often recommended to people that in online classes for online discussions, they do what I call the golden rule. So in my online classes, when I teach online, I have the golden rule of 3 by 3 by 3. That's the golden rule. That means they have to make the first post by day 3 of the week. They have to post and reply on at least 3 days of the week in total to show attendance in the class. And they have to reply to at least 3 other students. And so that's easy. It's always the same every week, and they know because of that policy and the golden rule, 3 by 3 by 3, they know what's expected. Makes it easier for them to meet your needs, your expectations in an online class. So there's a whole lot of other ideas in this chapter, and I'm not going to go over them all, but there's also advanced discussion methods. I talk about role plays, conferences, other types that you might get really cool ideas from these. So I did want to share that resource. And finally, to end this video training session, I just wanted to say that I'm always love to brainstorm with people. So like I said, I know that you're all unique. You have unique classrooms with unique learning goals and objectives, with students who have unique needs. So it's really helpful for me. If you want to chat with me, no problem. Submit a ticket to the help desk. Ask for a support session with me about this. And then we'll set up a time that works within your schedule, and bring your syllabus, and let's just chat about what you're doing, what you want to do, what kind of tools and technology approaches that you're interested in, and then I can help you make decisions after that, like this tool or that tool will fit that, or here's a kind of technology approach you could use to do what you want to do in the classroom or help your students reach that goal. So I'm always available to do brainstorming sessions. So that is the end of this training session on effective online discussions. Like I said, very fast and quick, lots of ideas. I hope it gave you a nice toolbox of things that you could do, some technology ideas that you could apply in various situations based on what you want to do. And of course, myself and my entire team are always available to discuss more technology ideas, give you technology support, and help you get those implemented.